Think you can't go to Disney World on a budget, or that you have to stay at a Disney hotel on property to get special perks in the parks? You are wrong, my friends. Hey everybody, it's AJ for Disney Food Blog. There are a lot of misconceptions about Disney World and a whole lot of bad planning tips. I'm not saying you shouldn't listen to the folks in your mommy Facebook group, but maybe you shouldn't listen to everything your coworker or your neighbor or Aunt Susan has to say about Disney World. We've talked about this before, and there are a few things you're completely wrong about. All right, let's get started. All right, I'm going to start with a huge misconception, and that is that the resorts around the Magic Kingdom are amazing and awesome and always the pinnacle of perfection when it comes to where you want to stay in Disney World. Everyone thinks that staying in one of those resorts, the Grand Floridian, the Contemporary, the Polynesian Village Resort, is what they should be aiming for. Yes, these hotels are iconic, they're classic, and you may even be able to see bits of the Magic Kingdom from your hotel room. But even if the price tag of these hotels doesn't deter you, you might be better off staying at a different hotel where you can walk to 2 parks instead of just 1. Magic Kingdom resorts do tend to be the most expensive, and while there is something special about staying right there next to Disney World's flagship park, you might be better off staying somewhere else. If you're planning to go to Hollywood Studios or Epcot more often than the Magic Kingdom, you should consider staying at the Boardwalk Inn, the Yacht and Beach Club, or even the Swan and Dolphin, because you can walk to those 2 parks from all of those resorts. Those resorts are also often much cheaper than the Magic Kingdom flagship resorts, so you can save some money too. Don't fall for the marketing. Stay where it makes sense for your budget and where is most convenient for you. If you've got little kids and you're going to the Magic Kingdom every single day and you have room in your budget for a big deal deluxe flagship hotel, well then sure, stay at the Grand Floridian, the Contemporary, the Polynesian Village Resort. They're good hotels. But if you're not going to the Magic Kingdom every single day, if you want to spend a little extra time in Epcot, maybe there's a festival, or you want to try for Rise of the Resistance multiple days in a row, well, then those Epcot area resorts are going to be a much better choice for you. They're deluxe resorts too. They have great pools, they have great food, and you can walk to 2 parks. Okay, now, for our next thing you're wrong about at Disney World, we're going to piggyback a little bit on that first one. A lot of people think you can only choose 1 hotel in Disney World for your vacation. You're going to be wrong if you think you have to choose 1 hotel for your whole Disney World vacation. Now you're saying, AJ, what are you talking about? You're being weird. Okay, we're talking about split stays. Split stays can be a great way to save some money on your arrival night if you get in late and don't want to pay for a more expensive room for every night of your trip. So if you get there on your arrival night, you're flying in late, you don't really get to take full advantage of your first day in Disney World, then why pay the money for a deluxe resort if you're not actually going to have a vacation day that day? Or if you want to spend the first few days just rope drop to close in the parks, you're not going to spend a lot of time in your hotel, and then you're going to spend the last few days maybe relaxing a little bit more, doing some pool days, and hanging out at your resort, then you want a more deluxe resort for those last few days. You can actually do that. You can split your stay on your week's vacation, and it's real easy to do. So maybe stay at a cheaper value resort like All-Star Movies or Pop Century on the first few nights of your trip, and on the second half of your trip, go ahead and move to a more expensive hotel, or spend half your trip somewhere cheaper, or spend the first night at a less expensive hotel and then move over to your more expensive hotel on the days that you're actually going to be there the whole time. Now, you're thinking this is going to be a huge hassle because you're going to have to take all your luggage and pack the car and drive over and check in, and AJ, you're basically making me miss 1 entire day of my vacation by moving hotels. Well, not really. Disney will actually move your luggage for you. You can drop it off with Bell Services when you're on your way to the park that morning, and they'll take it to your new hotel so you don't need to worry about having a car to get you and your stuff from point A to point B. So can it be a hassle to do a split stay? Sure. So you'll be essentially roomless from 11 to 3, but if you're going to be in the parks anyway, that's not a really big deal. Plus, you could save some significant cash money by staying somewhere cheaper for the first half of your vacation when you're spending all your time in the parks, and then stack up the luxury on the last half of your vacation so you really get a good rest and some rejuvenation before you head back to work after your vacation week. This is also a handy tip if you cannot decide between hotels and you just really want to try 2 hotels. I am am a Disney hotel junkie. I love staying in all the different hotels. I used to have bucket list hotels that I wanted to stay in. Well, I still do. I haven't stayed at Hotel Miracosta over at Tokyo Disney Sea, and I really, really want to. But that was something that was almost as important to me as riding certain rides, was staying at different hotels and seeing what it was like to stay there. So you can knock a couple of them off your list if you do a split stay. All right, now let's talk shopping in Disney World. Another thing you're wrong about at Disney World, this is bad advice I hear all the time, is that World of Disney sells everything and you can just wait till the end of your trip and then buy all the souvenirs you wanted at World of Disney. Well, that used to kind of be true. And the World of Disney store in Disney Springs is the largest merchandise store in Disney World. They do have a lot of what's sold in the parks and at the resorts, but no, they don't have everything there. So if you see ride or location specific merchandise or hotel specific merchandise that you want, it may only be sold in one location. For example, the things you're going to find in Memento Mori outside of the Haunted Mansion in the Magic Kingdom, that's the Haunted Mansion's gift shop, that stuff you can really only find there. The same goes for t-shirts or mugs that you find at a Disney resort. You probably won't find a mug for the Polynesian Village Resort in Disney Springs, so if you want that thing, you should probably go ahead and buy it when you see it. If you're worried about fitting it in your suitcase, you can go ahead and mail that merch straight home. Just ask the cashier as you're checking out and they can get you set up to have it be shipped and meet you at your house when you get home. And if you're having second thoughts about that exclusive piece of merchandise you bought, you can return nearly all merchandise in Disney World to any gift shop location, so long as you have your receipt to prove that you did buy it. That means if you bought something in Magic Kingdom and you realize it was a mistake, you can probably return it to your hotel gift shop. So yeah, if you see a souvenir you want, we used to give the advice to just wait till the end of the week and go to World of Disney and buy it all and use an annual pass discount if you got one, but these days, they don't sell everything anymore. And some of that really popular merchandise, it sells out real fast. So if you want it, buy it. You can always return it later. All right, here's something a lot of people are wrong about at Disney World, and it breaks my heart. They think you have to have a park ticket to eat at the best places in Disney World. Well, I'm just going to say it. Some of Disney World's best restaurants are not in a park. In fact, most of Disney World's best restaurants are not in a park. Some of the iconic restaurants that everyone tells you to eat at might be in parks like Cinderella's Royal Table, but that's not necessarily where you're going to get the best meal. Some of my favorite restaurants in all of Disney World are in Disney Springs right now, and at the hotels. So Homecoming, Wine Bar George, Morimoto Asia, Raglan Road, all phenomenal restaurants that don't require you to also pay for a park ticket. And Disney's resorts have some amazing food as well. Nearly everyone loves the restaurants at Animal Kingdom Lodge, even if only Sanaa is open at the moment. Jiko's pretty great and Boma's great too. And California Grill at the Contemporary Resort, every bit as iconic as Cinderella's Royal Table. Maybe not every bit. There's no princesses. You're not technically in a castle, but California Grill, that goat cheese ravioli is pretty iconic. I don't know, I'd probably trade a princess for it. Okay, next thing people are always wrong about at Disney World is that they can do everything in one trip. This is probably the most common misconception about Disney. You may have heard me say that it would take months or even years to do everything in Disney World, that even I haven't done everything in Disney World. So yeah, you obviously can't do everything in one trip, but you may not even be able to do as much as you want to do, especially now. Nowadays, you might get stuck in a trap of assuming you can do as much as you've done on past trips. You might be used to knocking out everything in Magic Kingdom in a full day, but now you might be lucky to do half the stuff you want to if the park is super busy because those lines are long and there's no fast pass. We saw crowds in Disney World hit a peak over spring break when capacity levels are still restricted to just 35% of what the park can hold. And we saw 45-minute long lines for attractions that never have lines. I'm not saying you won't be able to ride all of Magic Kingdom's mountains along with Peter Pan's Flight, Pirates of the Caribbean, and Haunted Mansion, but you could be spending nearly your entire day in line. FastPass is not returned, so you'll be waiting in standby lines for everything you want to ride right now. Park hours may still be limited depending on when you go, though Disney has regularly been extending park hours. So please, please, please double check how long the parks will be open leading up to your trip. They've been changing that on a weekly basis. We got it all in our newsletter, so if you are a newsletter subscriber, that's great. Thank you for subscribing. And you know you've got all that stuff in your newsletter each day from Disney Food Blog. Now, Disney is also taking advantage of fewer people visiting the parks right now and doing a lot of refurbishment work. So rides, restaurants, stores, hotels, hotel pools, There are construction and refurbishment projects happening all over Disney World right now, which can make it hard to knock everything off your to-do list if some of that stuff you wanted to do is closed. So here's a super weird tip that we're going to give to you right now that we'll never admit to again. Disney World always takes a ton of planning, but right now you might be better off under planning a bit. I know, you're shocked. I'm shocked too. But we are in special times, my friends. So get your park passes booked, make a few dining reservations that you don't want to miss, and maybe give yourself more than one day in Magic Kingdom where there are a lot of rides, and in Hollywood Studios where it's tough to get on the most popular ride. If you're on the fence about adding an extra day to your trip in order to do and see it all, or at least everything you really want to do, I'd say go ahead and add that extra day on if it's not going to totally break your budget, because you probably are going to need it. Giving yourself a little more wiggle room can be a big stress reducer. Nobody wants to be stressed on vacation. And don't plan out which rides you're going to ride on a minute-by-minute schedule. Keep an eye on those wait times in the My Disney Experience app and hit rides when you see they have a lower wait time. What we've seen in the parks is a lot of unpredictability. You never really know when a line's going to be long or when a line's going to be short. A lot of these rides are going down for refurb. A lot of the rides are going down for technical issues. So, hey man, if Splash Mountain's been down for an hour for some reason and then it randomly opens up and you see it first on that wait time list and it's only got a 10-minute wait, just rush yourself right over there and get in line. So be flexible, pay attention to where the crowds are, and go the other way. Okay, now here's another super weird thing that everybody's wrong about at Disney World right now. You can grab a meal whenever you want. Yeah, that's weird, right? Food is real strange in Disney World right now, especially when it comes to fast food. I know I just said don't overplan, but people are getting real frustrated right now if they're just gonna, quote, grab food when they're hungry, unquote. That's right, you need reservations to dine at practically any table service restaurant in Disney World right now, and you need to place mobile orders early at counter service restaurants to get a time slot to pick up your food that isn't hours later in the day. I know that sounds confusing, but Disney World is using mobile order, which means you have to order your food from your smartphone, and they're offering staggered times to pick up food, and only so many people can pick up food at certain times. So those 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock times for lunch, those fill up real fast. So you're going to want to grab your time slot early in the morning to make sure that if you want to eat lunch at noon, there will be a time slot available for you to eat at noon. So I hope that makes sense. It's kind of confusing and it's really stressful and frustrating if you're in the parks and you don't know that that's the deal that's going on, because you get hungry, you try to mobile order, and you realize you can't get your food till 3 o'clock in the afternoon now. Now, you can always grab a snack at a place without mobile order. There are some smaller kiosks that you can walk up to and just order, like Sleepy Hollow or Friar's Nook, but otherwise, you want to plan out all your meals in advance. You don't need to plan all your meals down to the exact minute you plan to eat, but if you typically like eating lunch around noon, you want to put that lunch order in around breakfast time to make sure you'll be able to eat at that time. You can place a mobile order for lunch hours in advance and select your arrival window way earlier in the day. Then when it's time for lunch, you'll check in on the app and have your arrival window secure. We've seen arrival windows for mobile orders fill up 2 to 3 hours in advance pretty often right now, so you do not want to wait until everyone is super hungry and needs food right now to place that mobile order. Not all counter service locations are created equal, too. You don't want to get off Tower of Terror, realize everyone's hungry, and then the only places you can mobile order from right now are the restaurants at Sunset Ranch Market, because everybody knows you don't want to go to Sunset Ranch Market. The food there isn't terrible, but if you had your heart set on a Ronto wrap, or you really don't want to sit and eat outside when it's super hot or super rainy, you're probably going to be disappointed. You don't need to plan all your meals months in advance. I don't want to scare you, but you should do a little bit of research to decide where you want to eat so you don't end up spending too much money on subpar food or dining somewhere that you just won't enjoy because you didn't plan ahead. Now, this is Disney Food Blog. We got lots and lots of videos about the best fast food and the best places to eat, quick service, and all of that stuff. We've got it all. We've also got all of that information. Every single restaurant is reviewed in our DFB guide, which you can pick up over at dfbstore.com. That's a ton of information. Everything that's in my brain, the brains of our entire staff, is all in that guide, and it should make quick work of you choosing which restaurants you want to dine at in Disney World. Okay, the next thing you're wrong about at Disney World is that everything's too expensive. Now, I know. Just hear me out. A lot of stuff is way too expensive, but not necessarily everything. Some things are actually priced appropriately and may even be good values or good deals. So that's what we're going to talk about right now. People love to say how Disney World is a total ripoff and everything there is just way too expensive. There's no doubt that Disney World is wildly expensive. You'll be dropping thousands of dollars on a vacation, but some things are worth the price tag. By the way, if you want to know what's a ripoff, we do have videos about what's a ripoff in Disney World here on Disney Food Vlog, and you can go check those out later. But that being said, what's worth it for one person may in fact be a ripoff for someone else. Some restaurants have very reasonably priced food, even by Disney standards. Beaches and Cream at the Beach Club Resort has entrees for $16. That's a table service restaurant, and that's a really low price for a table service restaurant in Disney World. And the atmosphere is super family friendly and it's good food. There are even experiences and activities that aren't going to break your bank. You can get behind the scenes in Epcot in the greenhouses of the Land Pavilion, or get up close to some of the animals in Animal Kingdom with a $30 tour. And oddly enough, it will only cost you $19 to get a haircut at the Harmony Barbershop in Magic Kingdom when it reopens. Even some of the more expensive things, pricey dinners, more expensive behind the scenes tours that cost around $100 a person, that stuff can be totally worth it if it's something that really interests you or you're looking to celebrate something special. It all depends on what you like, what you want to spend your money on, and what's worth it for you. So just because someone says something's a ripoff, like me and a Mickey bar, that doesn't mean that it's a ripoff for you. So spend some time and figure out what makes sense for you and your budget. Oh, and by the way, the next thing everybody is wrong about at Disney World, just because you love something doesn't mean everyone has to do it. Be careful when giving Disney advice. Consider the best interests of your friend or family member who's going. This is obviously something we're real careful of here at DFB. That's why we rarely say something is definitely good or bad. We explain what it's like so that people can determine for themselves if it's right for them. The same goes for listening to advice. Just because your coworker had the most amazing time at Chef Mickey's, that doesn't mean that you will. If your friend keeps raving about that space ride in Epcot, but you have no interest in space and you get motion sickness, you probably don't want to ride Mission Space. Give and take Disney World planning tips with a grain of salt. There are about a million ways to do Disney World, and no one's trip is going to look the same. So don't compare your trip to others. And don't tell your friend who's planning a trip that they absolutely cannot under any circumstances miss that one thing that you have to do every trip, when deep down you know they're not going to enjoy it as much as you are. So yeah, just because you loved it doesn't mean your friend's going to love it. Just because your friend loved it sure doesn't mean you are. So even though people are really free with Disney World advice, be sure to fact check that against the things you know you're going to love. All right, the next thing people are always wrong about at Disney World, and I really want to dispel this myth because it is ruining a lot of vacations. If you have little kids, you can't ride grown-up rides. All right, so you and the other adult you're traveling with both want to ride Expedition Everest, but you got a pack of kids or even just one kid who doesn't meet the height requirement or just aren't ready for a thrilling coaster. Well, you probably think you can't ride. Wrong. Disney has a great system called Rider Switch that means everyone who wants to can ride, even if you have some younger kiddos that can't be left unattended. Adult 1 will go through the regular standby line along with any kids who do want to ride, while Adult 2 waits outside the ride with the kids who don't want to ride or aren't tall enough. After Adult 1 and the first group rides, the riders switch, and Adult number 2 gets to skip the long standby line and ride with up to 2 or 3 extra riders. Yep, those kiddos who do want to ride a ride may be able to ride more than once. It's a super great system. Just ask a cast member about Rider Switch for any of those rides that do have a height minimum, and you'll probably be able to use the system. Okay, so this is something that a lot of folks are wrong about at Disney World. And again, this can really ruin your vacation. I'm so glad that we're hitting a lot of these things that can be epically misunderstood and really kind of tank your trip. All modes of transportation are not created equal. Disney World has several different ways to get around. There are smaller water taxis, the big ferry that'll take you to Magic Kingdom, the iconic monorail, the Skyliner, Disney buses. Boats are rarely the fastest way to get around Disney World, but they can be fun and relaxing and may have a shorter wait depending on where you're going. You can take a bus between Old Key West and Disney Springs, or you can hop on a boat, which is just more fun, but it may take longer. The Skyliner is one of the fastest ways to get around because it is continuously moving most of the time, and that quick transportation option may be a reason you decide to stay at a Caribbean beach or Art of Animation resort, because both of those resorts connect to the Skyliner, which means you can get to Epcot and Hollywood Studios a lot faster. And the monorail that connects the resorts around Seven Seas Lagoon and typically connects Magic Kingdom to Epcot is so iconic you're going to want to ride it at least once, even if you don't need it to get from point A to point B. But because so many people want to ride it, the monorail is often crowded and can have longer waits than some other forms of transportation. So if you're coming from the Transportation and Ticket Center in the morning, you might want to just take a bus rather than hop on the monorail. It's not as fun, but I guarantee you will be able to get on a bus and over to the Magic Kingdom much faster than if you were waiting for a spot on the monorail. Our reporters tell us this over and over and over again. They send us notes every morning and say, I'm taking the bus from the Transportation and Ticket Center to Magic Kingdom because there's nobody waiting. And there's tons of people waiting for the ferry and the monorail. So yes, there are buses that will take you to Magic Kingdom from the TTC. Absolutely take them if you want to get there quickly. And speaking of Disney buses, they too are pretty iconic, but I don't think anyone's going out of their way to make sure they get a ride on one. They will typically take longer to get you from point A to point B, and a lot of that time will be spent waiting for the bus to arrive. That being said, the buses aren't terrible. They're air conditioned, sometimes to the point of being too cold. And right now with social distancing, you're pretty much guaranteed to get a seat, which was not the case in the before times. So if having a certain form of transportation available is important to you, you're going to want to take a look at hotels that offer that form of transportation to make it easier for you to have the opportunity to take it. But also pay attention to this last section. Sometimes you can get someplace quicker than taking those iconic modes of transportation, and you just want to be aware of that just in case you're in a rush. Okay, now to piggyback on the transportation discussion, a lot of people are wrong about this as well. They think you can only use Disney transportation if you're staying in the hotels. Well, any guest, whether a hotel guest or just a guest at the parks with a park ticket, can use Disney transportation to get around between parks and resorts. That means if you're planning on hopping between Hollywood Studios and Epcot, you can go ahead and use the Skyliner or boats to get between the two, even if you aren't staying at a Disney World hotel. So long as you're visiting Disney World, you're free to use the buses, boats, Skyliner, and monorail to get around. Okay, another thing a lot of people are wrong about at Disney World, especially first-timers, are that you need to visit all 4 parks. Now, we love them all, but if you have a short trip and only time for 2 or 3 parks, don't sweat it. I'd rather go to Disney World than not go to Disney World, even if I can only go to 2 or 3 parks. And in fact, there's several times that I go to Disney World and I'm only there for 2 or 3 days, and I don't even get to Magic Kingdom, or I don't get to Hollywood Studios, or I don't get to Animal Kingdom, because I just don't have the time. So what you're going to do if you can't get to all 4 parks is look at the rides, the entertainment, the restaurants, and decide what's going to work best for you. If you're not into Star Wars and you have little kids like toddlers, or you're just not a fan of thrill rides like Tower of Terror and Rock and Roller Coaster, you might be able to skip Hollywood Studios altogether right now. It might be hard to decide which park you're cutting out of your plans, but if you only have time to visit Magic Kingdom, then just visit Magic Kingdom. Some people spend 2 weeks in Disney World and visit every park multiple times, and some people will just go to one, and that's okay. It's your trip. Yes, there's something you'll enjoy in every single theme park at Disney World, but you shouldn't feel like you need to decide to visit all of them or none at all. I think even the biggest Disney fans would take a single day at Animal Kingdom versus no day at any Disney World park every single time. So even if you're going for your first trip, believe me, there is no Disney police that is going to arrest you for not going to all 4 parks. It's okay if that's what's right for your family, especially if you've got little kids that just want to spend every day in Magic Kingdom. You know what? It's going to be all right. Okay, now here's the quintessential thing you're wrong about when it comes to us here at DFB, and that's that all the food at Disney World is bad. I still hear people saying this about Disney World, and it breaks my heart, because yes, there are typical theme park foods, but there's so much more than that, so this one hits home for us. So many people think that Disney World is all just chili dogs, cotton candy, and popcorn, and yes, those things are there, and we cover them and write about them, but no matter what kind of food you're into, you're gonna find it at Disney World. The most amazing Southern comfort food, super high-end Wagyu beef, fantastically plated sushi, 11-course feasts that might cost more than your phone. Disney has all of that alongside corn dogs and restaurants with animatronic dinosaurs. So Disney World's restaurants have menus that vary from the unique and exotic to stuff that will please everyone to dishes you may find at restaurants in your hometown. And it's not just a couple of fancy pants restaurants that cater to foodies. Epcot's festivals deliver on the promise of that unique and interesting variety of dishes served in small plate form so you can snack all the way around the park and try a bunch of different stuff you've never had before. They may be behind on the trends that foodies love to indulge in, but the food at Disney World, at least in our estimation, worth the trip alone. All right, now let's talk cash money. A lot of people think that there's no way to visit Disney World on a budget, and usually that's not going to be true. By no means will a Disney World vacation ever be considered cheap. We know this, but there are definitely ways to save money. You don't need to dine at the super expensive restaurants. $60 character meals are not in your budget. That's fine. You can see characters in the parks for free and save some of that cash. If you really want to fit in a more expensive meal during your trip, consider cutting costs on your other meals. Opt for more counter service meals instead of full service sit-down dinners, or bring your own food to the park. Buy some souvenirs in advance on Shop Disney when they have a sale and free shipping, and bring those to the parks for your kid. Look for discounts and deals at restaurants in Disney Springs, or even consider heading outside of Disney World property for some less expensive meals. You can even pick up groceries and have some easy no-cook breakfasts in your room before you head to the park. We, of course, have plenty of videos and blog posts about how to save in Disney World, but one of our biggest tips is to always look for a discount on your hotel room. Disney's constantly running sales and promotions on hotel rooms and vacation packages, so you never have to pay full price for a Disney vacation if you're keeping an eye on those discounts. If there was no discount that worked for your trip while you were booking, then keep checking back. You can often add those discounts on when they're announced, even if you've already booked. Now, if you don't love hunting down discounts and staying on top of all that stuff, consider booking your trip with a travel agent. They're going to pay attention to all of that info and let you know when a new discount comes out, and they will be able to apply that to your trip. And guess what? Travel agents are totally free, so they're not even going to take 1 single cent of your budget. They work on commission. That's how they get paid. So everything they do for you is free. Now, we love the folks over at Small World Vacations. They're incredibly talented and knowledgeable, and they're going to make sure you get the best deal you can on your Disney vacation. Now, everybody's got a different budget. Some people think they're taking a, quote, budget trip to Disney World when they're spending $4,000. And some people don't want to spend more than $100 a day on hotel, food, everything. Believe it or not, there are ways to visit Disney World on just about any budget. It just depends on what's worth it for you. I used to have a friend, and he and his wife would go to Disney World. They'd stay off property, and they would just go walk around the boardwalk or Disney Springs or visit the hotels. So they didn't technically have to spend a cent to spend time in their happy place. So it's really all about what works for you. But you can definitely visit Disney World on a budget. Now, let's talk a little bit about staying in Disney World hotels and getting Disney perks. A lot of people are misled about this. You may have heard that guests staying at Disney World hotels get those extra perks like early booking windows for dining reservations, or fast pass or early access to the parks. But did you know you don't actually have to stay at a Disney-owned hotel in order to get those perks? Right. So speaking of a budget, Disney World has several Good Neighbor hotels. They call them Good Neighbor hotels because they are hotels that have signed some sort of contract or work with Disney to be able to offer these perks. Most of them are just across the street from Disney Springs, and staying at those hotels will get you many of the same benefits that you'll get from staying at an official Disney hotel. Right now, there aren't many extra perks even, since Fast Pass is on hold and extra magic hours are also not happening. But as those extras come back, resort guests and those staying at Good Neighbor hotels are going to start to get some extra benefits that people staying elsewhere may not get. Disney will be adding early entry to the parks for select hotel guests, and this will be an extra 30 minutes every morning at every park for people staying at certain hotels. The benefit will likely be extended to those Good Neighbor hotels, and when FastPass comes back, guests staying at Disney World hotels and the Good Neighbor hotels will likely once again get a jump on booking. Before, those folks could book FastPass 60 days in advance, while everyone else had to wait until 30 days out from their trip. Now, you can't stay at any old hotel in the Orlando area and get those perks, but you may not need to stay in an official Disney World resort, which can mean some serious savings. Those Good Neighbor hotels can be a lot less expensive, and also if you stay at the Swan and Dolphin resorts, those are not owned by Disney, they're owned by Marriott, but they are right on property, they are within walking distance of 2 parks, and they're much less expensive than the deluxe resort rooms that are right next door. So if you want deluxe accommodations and most of the perks you can get from staying in a Disney World hotel, as well as walking distance to 2 parks, Swan and Dolphin, those are going to be your choices. Okay, now this next one is a tip that I get asked about all the time, and it really is surprising to me that this isn't kind of better known as a misconception. A lot of people think you can't visit the hotels in Disney World if you're not staying there. Now, you can make reservations at restaurants and Disney hotels you aren't staying at, and you can use Disney transportation to get from the parks or from Disney Springs to those hotels for your restaurant reservation. No matter where you're staying, even if it's off-site, you can visit Disney World hotels so long as you make an advanced dining reservation right now. Now, that's right, Disney's being a little more strict about letting people in who aren't staying at their hotels at the moment because of their COVID-19 restrictions, but you can still visit if you've made a dining reservation. When things go back to normal, you'll probably be able to just swing by a resort to check it out again like we used to be able to, or stop by a bar or lounge for a quick drink without a reservation. But for now, you're going to want to make that advanced dining reservation if you want to visit a resort you aren't staying at. But let's dispel the myth overall that you're not allowed to go to other hotels. You absolutely can. You can go to any hotel you want to. Disney wants you to go to those hotels so that maybe you'll stay in them someday. Right now, you have to make that reservation, but eventually that restriction will be lifted and you'll be able to go to any hotel whenever you want. All right, now our last thing you're wrong about at Disney World is a super big deal. This is another one that can absolutely ruin your Disney trip, and I think it ruins a lot of Disney trips every year. And that is, you spend a lot of money, so you're guaranteed to have fun. Well, even if you spend an exorbitant amount of money on your vacation, that does not guarantee you will have a great trip. You can shell out the cash for the most expensive hotel room, the priciest dinner, and all the extra VIP experiences, and still feel like your trip was a dud. It's not about the cash, you guys. You can visit Disney on the cheap and have a perfect trip. It's all about your attitude and your perspective when you're there. Because you know what? Like we say on the channel a lot, things will go wrong. It's gonna rain. Your kids are gonna fight. Your mother-in-law isn't gonna like the restaurant. Your nephew isn't gonna wanna ride the ride that you woke up at 7 a.m. to make sure he was gonna be able to ride. All that's going to happen, but if you decide that all those little things won't ruin your trip, you're going to have a better time than thinking money can just buy your way out of any inconvenience. Trust me, it's still going to rain even if you spent $15,000 on your trip, and that rain is still going to close down Test Track right when you want to ride, and all that money won't make it open up. So this stuff's going to happen. Things are going to go wrong on your trip. Just be prepared and be ready for it and be flexible and have a plan B. So I hope you have a wonderful trip. I hope you have the most incredible return on your financial investment when you go on vacation in Disney World. But things do go wrong, so be prepared for those and keep your positive attitude if you can. All right, another long video for you guys today, but I just think these things are so important. A lot of these are game changers for folks when they realize that they're wrong about them. So I hope they're helpful for you. And yeah, there are a lot of things people get wrong about Disney World, but hopefully we just made you a less confused guest. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you so much for watching, and thanks for subscribing to our channel if you're subscribed. If you're not, we'd love to have you subscribe and be a part of our family here at DFB Guide. As always, this is AJ for Disney Food Blog. I hope it wasn't too much of a know-it-all in this video. I don't want to be a know-it-all, but I will say there are some things here that are important to remember when you're making your trip plans. All right, everyone, we'll see you real soon.